Welcome to today's webinar. I think we are at the end of our series, which is our state by state. So if you're watching this and you're interested in any other state, go through and watch the replays. They are available on YouTube. But today we are going to finish up with Queensland. Now I have joining me Sandy and Talisha Buttsworth, Felicity and Debbie. And I will be honest, I actually don't know all the areas that you guys work. My geography is not my strongest suite. So these ladies are our preferred property managers in Queensland. Obviously, they do a wide range of areas. If you are interested in buying in that area or investing over there or have property management questions, do Google them, reach out to them, and they will be able to fill you in with whether they can help with your area. But today, like previous webinars, we are going through just getting that on the ground market update, because we find that the media is commenting on it as a general status, which is often quite inaccurate and for specific areas. So we really just want to make sure that our investors are getting the on the ground information that's relevant to them. And so we have some questions. I'm not going to ask each person all the questions. We'll go through and pick some out for everyone. And if you are watching today, I can see there's a few people here. Just if you've got any questions, either put them in the Q&A or the chat, whichever one is working for you, and then I'll ask the ladies as well. So we are going to start off today with, let's start off with Talisha. So Talisha, can you just give us a brief background of the area that you're working in, and then just let us know what's sort of changed in the last sort of 12 months with investor activity? Has it got busier, quiet, neutral, etc.?
Yeah, so Mum and I obviously work the Gladstone market, which is a pretty hot topic with a lot of investors when they start to research Queensland. We have actually noticed that our market started to slow down with investor inquiry. It's not as hot topic as what it was probably 12 months ago, and it's definitely quietened down from what we've noticed. We're finding that a lot of the people that are investing into the Gladstone region are either currently homeowners in Gladstone that are relocating out of the area, and then not a lot of like interstate investors are happening as much as like in Gladstone.
Okay. And Sandy,
Yeah.
the investors that have purchased when you guys did have a bit of activity, are you finding that they're planning, like they're holding on, they're doing their investments performed quite well and they should be staying investors for a while? Are you not seeing
Yes.
anyone sell off?
No, they're actually they are hanging in there because now they're starting to see the return. Because as if they've owned it, for example, for 12 months, when we're doing lease renewals, then this is the opportunity to increase the rent. So we're seeing some good, healthy returns now. After the 12 months, we've even had owners reach out now, they're ready to buy again. So happy with the service, that type of thing, reached out to us and go, okay, we're ready to buy again in Gladstone. If you're, buying in good pockets here, then, good healthy returns again, moving up. So,
yeah.
Yep.
Oh, good. So the ones that have purchased have done well.
Yes, definitely. Yes.
Excellent. Now, Debbie, last time we spoke, you had a little bit of a different market because you're in I say more affluent, but there's high price properties. So I think the investor activity with you was a little bit different, wasn't it?
Yeah, a lot different. So we've definitely seen a drop in investor buy-ins. There is a couple of areas. So we've sort of got three different pods of areas that we do. Within the Redlands, especially Cleveland, the yield's just not there anymore. And with the rates being, interest rates and everything going through the roof, we're just seeing that if they're wanting a yield, they're just not getting the return back. A lot of properties, where 2 years ago would have been around that 800 mark are now well and truly into the mill. While rents have stayed high and definitely increased, they've just not increased to the point where they're covering, if they're taking on that investment like as a full unit of money, they're not covering it in the yield. In saying that, we've also got pods down at Kalanga and Moray Field Way, which is Sunshine Coast Way. And oh my God, it's crazy. Like here, you'll do an open home and we'll get, up to 5 people for an open home on a property in the Redlands, whereas we did one, well, we've done quite a few just recently down Kalanga Way, and I normally cap it, and for some reason we didn't cap it this time, and I had over 50 groups come through, and it was just nuts. It was absolutely nuts. So I'm seeing that that area especially, you can still buy under that mill, and you're getting back, really, really good rent prices. So
yeah, okay. So if they're specific with where they're buying, do you find that you might get more what we call the accidental landlords, which is where people are moving out of homes and purchasing another and then just renting out theirs, as opposed to savvy investors that are buying purposely for a business? Would that be fair to say?
That's exactly what we're getting.
Yeah.
So I would say probably in the last 6 months, we're looking at people that they have come sort of they've bought well, and then they've got that equity in their property, and then they can go on and buy an investment property for sure. That's definitely what we're seeing, rather than, we used to have all of the buyers agents from Sydney and Melbourne and everything ringing us all the time and saying, hey, we want this for investors, but that's definitely dropped off, and we've definitely seen the mum and dads and the retirees who are buying their second and third properties for investments. Yeah,
that's good. I mean, over here in WA, we haven't got the local market yet, so we're still trying to wait for the local market to pick up. Felicity, you're in a similar area, aren't you? So what are you finding with sort of something similar, or what do you find?
Yeah, so we're based in the Redlands, but we service a lot of the Brisbane CBD and then also your western suburbs. So Ipswich, Springfield, and Logan. So similar to what Debbie said, Ipswich, Springfield, Logan, that is where it is for interstate investors at the moment. You can buy a really good quality investment property that's going to give you really strong yields, and I can do an open home at a premium rent and have 10 to 15 groups through, and normally rent that property on the first inspection. I find similar in the Brisbane CBD, because it's location, those properties are getting really good rental yields. You've got really strong interest. You come more into the Redlands, and it is those accidental investors that we're finding. So not necessarily people buying in for investment property, but people that are growing their portfolio. They've lived in it for a couple of years. They're now onto their next property. Their family is giving them the advice to hold on to it with the Olympics, which is smart advice. So they're putting it up on the rental market.
How do you think? I didn't even think of that. So how, and I hope I don't say something really stupid here. When is that happening? And I'm not someone who watches the news, so I have like no idea. Like when you said that, I was like, interesting. Tell me a little bit more.
On the spot, and someone in this room is going to correct me if I'm wrong, but I have a feeling it's 2032. Am I wrong or am I right?
I don't watch the news either, and I live here, but I do know it is somewhere about that, yeah.
Yeah, it's somewhere around there is where the Olympics is planned for, and there's some locations that are planned to be built in the Redlands specifically, which is where Debbie and I are located, and then obviously across Brisbane. So what we are expecting is that, capital growth, rental prices and purchase prices will continue to increase. So the advice that I'm giving to most of my clients is, if you financially can, hold on to that property, because now is not time to part ways.
Yeah, okay, that's good to know. And you mentioned Ipswich, for example, where it's somewhat popular. Like, can you give me an example of what an average purchase price would be and an average return on that? Like, what would an investor expect to be getting there?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, and I actually had this conversation with Talisha, I think last week. So you can get maybe, for example, a modern contemporary 3-bedroom townhouse in a complex with a pool for around 600 to maybe 625, and then you're probably getting a return of maybe 650 back per week if it's well maintained. And given the demographic, there's a lot more, higher rental ratio or rental ratio. So we're finding that the open homes, there's a lot of interest from prospective parties, which is really good.
Yeah, and then Talisha and Sandy, you're with Gladstone. I think last time we chatted, there's obviously like a lot going on in the area, and there's no shortage of tenants. What sort of, if an investor was to buy today, what would they be paying, and what return would they be getting?
They would, or did you want to answer this, Mum, or do you want me to?
No.
Okay. For just a stock standard 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom double lockup, they're easily looking at above 550,000 to 600,000. I would probably say more into the 600,000 for something that is of quality now. But 12 months ago, they were paying like just shy of 500,000 for these 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom double lockup. So if any investor bought 12 months ago, they are absolutely cruising now. And the rent for those 4x2x2s are around 600 to 650 now. But 12 months ago, they were like 500 to 550. So we've seen a big jump in pricing over the last 12 months.
It's still a good rental yield, isn't it?
Really good rental yield for 600,000.
Yeah,
Like where else in Queensland, if you pointed on the map, are you going to buy for 600,000 a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom double lockup?
Yeah.
And
Around here.
yeah, these are good quality homes, because we do ride the highs and lows. And the properties which Talisha is talking about are the good quality homes which will ride out that if there is a price adjustment. I mean, we don't know where our markets are going at the moment, do we, in Queensland? But if there is an adjustment, then these are properties that will still attract good quality tenants that have the affordability to carry that rent increase through into the future as well.
Yeah, good to know. Now, Debbie, you also do sales. So what's the is that right? Yeah. What's the sales market looking like to give people an idea if someone was going to buy a property? Are you getting massive home opens, multiple offers? What's that looking like?
No, it's slowed. There's not a lot on the market at all. And we're seeing that, like, if something comes on, it's gone within a few weeks usually. But at the same time, people are holding their own. It's like the sellers are saying, no, I want this, it's gone up to this, that's that. And then the buyer is going, well, no, I think that it's only still worth this. So it's like they're still butting heads type of thing. Definitely whatever's coming on is getting sold for a premium. I mean, it's difficult at the moment. Our say townhouses that we sell a lot of, they're around that million mark, and it's just nuts. Like, for us to try and get and this is a perfect example, we just sold a 4-bedroom, which it was quite a big townhouse, and we got 1.2 for it, but then we struggled to get 900 for it for rent. So that's where around our area there is a lot of townhouses and units and everything, especially in Cleveland, and they're just not able to cope with how much they're paying to the rent. Sales, yeah, it's hard at the moment. Like we're doing okay because we've got, like I said, plenty of different developments and things. But I do find that where there once was heaps and heaps of sales agents around our area, it's only the ones that have been here for a long time that are still sort of getting into the market. So, yeah, it's definitely slowed. Definitely. I think it'll depend on this next couple of rate rises as to what happens. So,
yeah. Felicity, in your office, what are lease renewals looking like? Are you doing lease renewals, like increases, or are they stable?
Not stable. So we're continuing to see rents rise year on year. Really, that's probably been happening since COVID, and that's not slowing down. Depending on the type of property you have, where it's located, will obviously influence how much it is increasing by. But
What's the range?
Oh, I've got it. Okay, so I'm not seeing many. It's mainly around $50, maybe even upwards per week that we're having increases, particularly for my portfolio. And we do a lot of takeovers from other agents where clients might have been having some issues with, service levels, performance of their property. So that might also be influenced by properties being under market for a period of time, and then we obviously need to get it to market value. But we're still seeing quite hefty rent increases. And from an investor's point of view, they need that as well. Cost of hold, they need that rental property to continue to increase. Otherwise, it's going to be very hard for them to retain it.
Are tenants understanding the rent increases? Are they making a big scene about it, or is it sort of expected?
Not for my agency, and I think this is pure. I think tenants are past that. There's so much news coverage that tenants expect to have rent increases. Where I think as an investor and agent falls short is if they haven't nurtured that tenancy, if they haven't provided them with a good customer service, if they're not getting back to their the maintenance requirements for that property, if they're not reinvesting back into the property, that's where that becomes a sore point, because you're wanting more money for the property, but you're not necessarily, taking care of the tenant that's in that house. So they're probably the investors that, are having some issues, are having turnover of tenants. For my portfolio, big focus of our agency is looking after our tenants, because we believe the better we do that, the better results we get for our investors. And we're seeing that we retain, or have been retaining, 100% of our tenants.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. And Talisha and Sanji, in the Gladstone area, I lost my question that I had for you guys. Hold on a second. Is it going to come back to me? Or maybe I'll have to ask you. It'll come back to me in a minute. The renewals in your area must have gone up quite a bit as well if you've had such a big jump. Has that been going okay with the tenants? Have they understood that?
Yes, it has. And coming in behind Felicity, exactly the same, servicing our tenants in the same manner that we've always serviced owners as well. Similar in the fact that education, doing maintenance, reporting maintenance, getting maintenance addressed as soon as possible. And the other thing we're finding is that tenants are tending to stay on if they're happy with all of the service levels, but also it's cheaper to stay. So if you price your lease renewal accordingly and you have trying to keep that good quality tenant in the residence, chat to your owner, come to that happy median. Obviously, it's all about yield as well with the lease renewal, and then offer it accordingly. We're actually not getting any negotiations from the tenant, and it's just sign up. Tenant's happy to stay, owner's happy to keep that tenant on, and keeping the service levels up from our agent aspect.
Yeah, that's good to know. Talisha, has there been any horror investor stories? Any investors purchase something and there's been a big cleanup you've had to do, or a mistake they've made that you wish they knew?
I think one of the biggest things that Sandy and I are both encouraging everyone to do if they are buying is to get that electrical inspection. I think we've had, last summer was probably our worst summer that we've ever had when it came to air cons. And it was a lot of new people, like new investors into the area that they got a building and pest. There were a few things on the building and pest that needed to be done. And we're like, hey, did you get an electrical inspection? Because that's the biggest thing that we're seeing come across our desk is aircon's not working. And we're moving tenants in and aircons just aren't turning on. And we're going to do the pre-purchase inspection or pre-settlement inspection. We're like, hey, the aircon's not working. Like, that's okay, we'll sort it out. Then the tenant moves in, and then all of a sudden we're like, hey, the aircon still isn't working. And they're like, oh, we'll get someone to have a look at it. Some like aircon techs will go out, they'll have a look at it, they go, oh, it's full replacement. The owner's like, oh, why wouldn't that come up in my building a pest? Because they're not an electrician. And we've picked it up at the pre-purchase, or we've picked it up at the pre-settlement, and we're like, hey, you can't settle. And they're like, oh, it's just an aircon. And we're like, we're coming into summer, we don't have our issue in Gladstone is lack of trades. I'm not sure if you guys have it down in Brisbane, but we have a big issue with quality trades. It's really hard to get a tiler, waterproofer. Even our electricians at the moment are very scarce. We've got We're okay with plumbers, but electricians is very scarce. So aircon techs, we've probably only got about 2 or 3 aircon techs up here. So it's just trying to educate our owners now in winter. Hey, if you've got air cons that need to be deep cleaned, is it time to get your aircon service? Now's the time, because last summer we had so many air cons that were just, yeah. But we haven't had too many horror stories.
So just
We've been okay.
more just the electrical and understanding that there's a lower trade there, and understanding that you really need to make sure that's working.
Yeah, because our prices are going to be higher than Brisbane for like in the southern areas of Queensland, because we are in a regional area. So we are finding that when owners are like, well, my property in Brisbane or my property in Sydney, this is how much it costs for the electrician to go. And it's like, that's okay, but you're in a city. Now you're up in regional, your prices are going to be higher because the trades, the quality trades that we're trying to get to the property are just not here.
Yeah. Felicity, last question for you. Are you finding any changes in the legislation affecting any owners? What's the consensus with owners? Are they feeling worried, safe, confident?
I would say my investors are feeling confident, and it's all about really proactive education. I think sometimes when they're seeing it through media and it's, legislation change after legislation change after legislation change, it can seem really daunting. But in actual fact, the legislation changes that are coming out aren't having too much effect on investors, if any. Obviously, for those that might not be doing the right thing, they might be feeling a little bit of heat and having to adapt their operating styles. But for my investors, they're not having any effect, which is really good. But again, proactive communication. You should be hearing from your agent quite soon after any legislation change is announced, and then talking you through it so that you can make informed decisions and not feel, overwhelmed by what's coming out.
Yeah, I've always said in some of the other webinars that it's our responsibility to make sure that we are, whether we like them or don't like any new legislation, that we're coming across as confident to the clients, so that they do feel safe and in control. With it all, as much as we might not like some of the changes. So that's good that that's all getting done. And then Debbie, I just wanted your last question, and I just want to sort of just swing back to that mention before of the a 1.2 mil townhouse, but with a rental price of 900. I just want to double check with you. Do you think is it because people can't afford more, or is it because there's a lot of stock available in that category, that there's just a lot for people to choose from, therefore you have to be quite market appropriate?
I don't, there's not an overabundance of stock, I wouldn't say. It's just the higher price. It's getting higher and higher and higher in prices. So I think, it's much easier to rent out something that's 700 a week than it is 900. So because they're starting to get higher, obviously so are the rentals for them, because that's what they're, we always try to go in, especially with investors when they're buying in and around this area. We always try and go in with a little bit higher and just watch the back end and see how it's being received in the first couple of days. And then, look, when they're buying, we really, really try and say to them, look, this is a range that we're going to give you that you could possibly get. If there's nothing on the market, then you may possibly get that higher amount. But then if it's flooded, then you're probably not going to get it as much, because they're going to always go. And, it'd be great if we all said, okay, for every 4, 2 and 2, we're going to charge this much. And for every, 3, 1 and 2, we're going to charge this much. But of course, everybody's different. So, you get the bigger companies, which I'm not going to name, and they sort of, like, it's easier for Felicity and I, because we're owner-operators, and, you've got a lot of big companies here that they're happy just to put the extra 10 or 20 bucks on every time it comes around for lease renewals, which makes it harder than when we go out and try and get the maximum for our landlords to help them with, what they're doing with their investments. And yeah, sometimes I just feel like going, it's like we're there to help them why do you want to have an investment if you can't make money from it? That's the whole point of it. So I don't think it's really about the stock. I think it's just about the prices going up and having to. Yeah.
And that sort of, I guess, is one thing that I always say to investors is whatever your budget is, it's about buying appropriate for that area. So we might have I had a client last week where he had a pre-approval for 800,000 and he was looking in a certain area. And I said to him, listen, it's fine that you've got that pre-approval, but I wouldn't be spending any more than 650,000 in that location because I know that the most popular rental price, that people can afford in that area might be 550, 600 a week. So why would you go spend 800,000? And sure, it'll be a beautiful home, but people can't afford to pay the yield that you're going to need to keep that one running. So go find something a little bit more basic at 650, which is the ideal price for that area, and you'll get lots of interest because that's people's preferred budget. So for me, it's just about buying appropriate lease. So like, in your areas, if most people have a budget of 700,000, then go looking for properties in this price range. It's about being appropriate with your spend, I find. But I appreciate, I'm getting so good at keeping these on time, 10:30 on the dot. So pat on the back for me and you guys for keeping on that. I tend to talk and they go over and I really try to keep them 30 minutes. But that's really, really good on the ground info. Obviously, such a vast range of areas, which brings us back to that point that if you're just going to have the media comment on Queensland, you can't just comment on one area. You have to understand each location. And these ladies obviously do very, very different locations. So if you are an investor looking at buying and investing, please make sure you reach out and just double check that information that they've shared today, because it's really, really important. And as again, I always say, it's not about buying a property, it's about buying a property with confidence. And you can only have that confidence when you've spoken to experts on the ground. So thank you, ladies. I really appreciate your insight. I'm also very selfish in these webinars because I love to hear the comparisons, because we've all got clients that are in different areas as well. Like my clients also own in Queensland and Perth and Melbourne. So it's really good to have an understanding of what they're experiencing in other states and vice versa. So appreciate your time. Enjoy your day. And I'll have the replay up available for everyone to watch and share.
Thanks, Ash.
Thanks for having us, Ash.